Salute, salute, salute. Boxing YouTube world. Salute, salute, salute. What's happening? All the boxing community, all my subscribers. Man, I appreciate y'all, man. What's happening with y'all? Hey, peace, blessings. I see you too. Peace and blessings to everybody out there in the boxing community and YouTube world. Hey, salute from Nocturnal Thoughts. I'm gonna make a real quick video and then I'm gonna get out y'all way. The age-old question. Get down. Can the great little man defeat the great big man? Now, this is going to really talk about Mr. Gary Russell Jr. and his attempts to make a fight with TBC, Terrance Bud Crawford. And I look like I might have to update this video because I just seen a video from Fanon International. Salute to Fanon International. Just released a video where Mr. Gary Russell Jr. might be turning down the option to fight Devin Haney. And then also another video just popped up on my notification from this is one dude I just subscribed to. I'm gonna put his name right there. Wow. But he just hit me up on a notification with his version, his idea, his thought on Terrance Bud on Mr. Gary Russell Jr. turning down the fight to fight Devin Haney. I'm gonna check that out. Maybe get back to you if I have any thoughts on that. But real quick, man, real quick video, and then I'm gonna get out y'all way. Can the great big man defeat the great? Can the great little man defeat the great big man? That is a question that would have been answered had we. That's my daughter. I'm gonna take her to the swimming pool, so she's going to be jumping in this video. But can the great little man beat the great big man? That's the question that would have been, could have been, should have been answered had we got the fight of Mr. Gary Russell Jr. fighting Terrance Bud Crawford. You know what I'm saying? Because both of those guys are masters at their craft. So the question is, can a great little man defeat a great big man? Now, if you look at it from the biblical perspective, the first thing that everybody thinks of is the David and Goliath parody. Now, the David and Goliath, I don't know if that's going to fit with Terrance Bud Crawford and Mr. Gary Russell Jr. because the parable of David was not that he was a great man in his skill set with his slingshot. The parable, I'm screwing that word up. I'm not good with R's. I'm from the South. The parable with David is that his faith in God was big. And it was God working through him, using him as a vessel to defeat the giant who was Goliath. But at the same time, Goliath wasn't great. He was great in stature. He was great in size. He was a warrior, but that's not to say he was a great man or great as a warrior. That just made me think of Achilles. That just made me think of the movie Troy with Achilles, who jumped right off and fought. I think the big giant guy was like Argamenov or something like that, but he just put him down with one swipe. He took the blade and just stuck him right there behind the back piece and just took him out with one swipe. Anyways, back to the Bible. David and Goliath, it was his faith in God that made him victorious. Like they say, the faith the size of a mustard seed can move mountains, right? So, if you look at it from that perspective, You don't have a great little man versus a great big man. You have a man that has a great faith in God, and then God has the power to do anything, and he defeats a giant man. That's a warrior, but that's not to say he's a great man, great skill set, right? But when we look at it from the boxing perspective, we have to look at some of the names that bring to mind the little men who do the biggest things in boxing. Like, you have your Manny Pacquiao, who was an eight-time, eight weight class champion. He started out at a young age, and I believe his weight was, you know what I'm saying, somewhere in the 110, 115, 120, and he worked his way all the way up to fighting in the 140s, the welterweight division, right? You think of that, comparison, but you also have to understand and look at it that Manny Pacquiao had a progression over time. You think of Floyd Money Mayweather, who started off at about, he was a kid too, 18, 17, or he was real little when he first started boxing, period. But when he made his professional debut, he started out like 120, and he worked his way up to a welterweight. Was always a small welterweight, was always fighting bigger guys. Canelo outweighed him, you know what I mean? So to say that a little man can't come and fight bigger men and be successful, that question has slightly been answered. Another person you kind of think of is a Roy Jones Jr. Roy Jones Jr., who jumped up to fight in heavyweight, and he fought John Ruiz. The thing is, and he's about to fight Mike Tyson, But Roy Jones Jr. he was a phenom. He was phenomenal. He was a whole different level of a fighter. And he wasn't fighting a great big man. He was just fighting a big man. John Ruiz was not a spectacular, devastational heavyweight. He was like a second tier heavyweight. He fought some guys and beat them when they was out of their prime, like when he beat Holyfield. I don't think Holyfield was still in his prime. But John Ruiz wasn't a great big man. He wasn't a huge big man either. He was like 220 pounds. Roy Jones Jr. had moved his body weight up to like 193 pounds of nothing but muscle. John Ruiz still has a little bit of boxiness to him. You know what I'm saying? So the question has still not been answered. If you dig into your history and you see one of the smallest heavyweights to ever do it was a guy by the name of Tommy Burns. Tommy Burns was like 5'7", according to Wikipedia and Boxing Rec. Tommy Burns was 5'7", 175 pounds. You know what I'm saying? That's like Sean Porter is probably walking around naturally 5'7", 175 pounds, and he has to stay in shape year round to get down to that 147 mark to fight in the welterweight division. So Tommy Burns lost his title to Jack Johnson. An interesting fact, that fight went 14 rounds, and I've just read that it's recorded two ways: that Jack Johnson knocked out Tommy Burns, or Tommy Burns lost by points because the police actually intervened in the fight and prevented the knockout. The police jumped in the ring to break up the fight between Jack Johnson and Tommy Burns so that Tommy Burns wouldn't lose by a knockout, but he lost by points. There was also some other stories that Tommy Burns wasn't 100%. He had some kind of case of influenza, something like that. Do your own research. But anyways, so the question still hasn't been answered. You can look at boxing, and there's some examples of little guys that move up and have some success, but we still haven't seen. Oh, another guy that comes to mind is Evander Holyfield. Evander Holyfield was never a big heavyweight. Mike Tyson was never a big heavyweight. And those were like little small guys that was just dynamite. I watched an interview with Adrian Broner on Vlad TV, and he said, man, he met Mike Tyson, and just in regular casual conversation, Mike Tyson gave him some dap and then pat him on the back, and he did it just casually, and his strength just moved, just pushed over Adrian Broner, just a pat on the back, just push Adrian Broner. You know what I'm saying? So it's always like this case of, can the little dog beat the big dog? Come here. Like, this right here is my little Maltese. You know what I mean? Come here. This right here. Oh, this right here is Brutus. That's my bulldog. Now, the Maltese, he whoops Brutus' ass all day long. Brutus is just, that's my best friend. He's so cool, calm, and collected, and nonchalant. He just kind of let the little dog bully him around. You know, he's a pup. But my neighbor over here has a pit bull. That mug head is bigger than Brutus' whole body. Winston go over there barking up the wrong tree, barking behind the fence. He just a amuse-bouche. If you don't know what amuse-bouche is, it's like an appetizer. Winston is an appetizer. It get ate up. You see what I'm saying? So when we look at it in realistic, the size matter. The size make a difference. In my opinion, if you look at it from a realistic point of view, the little dog, hey, be quiet. A great little dog versus a great big dog. Come here. You shush you. Yeah, I'm talking about you. You want to be a star? So a great big dog is gonna eat up a great little dog. You know what I mean? You look at it from a biblical point of view, it's not about the size of the dog in the fight. It's about the size of the faith in the dog. You look at it from a boxing point of view, we still haven't seen a great guy like Gary Russell Jr., who has a full skill set and is a big dog, big heart, go up against a guy that's ambidextrous, that has a full skill set, that's a great big guy like a Terrance Crawford. So the question hasn't been answered. You guys let me know what you think would happen between a Gary Russell Jr. and a Terrance Crawford. And since it's just a fantasy fight and it's not going to happen, I'm going to be honest with you. I think Terrance Crawford would destroy Mr. Gary Russell Jr. Period, point blank. And another thing, if you want to go back to the biblical, I'm not very a religious person, but when I hear Gary Russell Jr. talking, he's talking about himself. He's talking about his skill set. I don't hear him talking about how much faith in God he has to deal with the likes of a Terrance Crawford. So if it's not coming from that faith-based, you know what I'm saying, perspective, then that X's out the biblical. And you only got to look at it from the boxing. And if you look at it from the boxing, not being a gradual process, just jumping up 2 weight classes and fighting the top pound for pound guy who has just as many skills as you, I'm saying Mr. Gary Russell Jr. would be taking the L. He might make a case for himself. He might come in there and, you know what I'm saying, bang out some rounds and have a moral victory. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, Terrance Crawford would have made easy work out of Gary Russell Jr. But that's just my opinion. And it's just kind of right off the top. You know what I'm saying? I haven't put a whole lot of thought into it. Anyways, y'all enjoy whatever y'all doing. Enjoy it. Leave me a comment and let me know what y'all think, man. This Nocturnal Thoughts. I'm about to take my little one to the pool. I'm gone. Salute.